I'm Dr Jodie Richardson, and you're listening to, well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. I'm so excited because I have my guest here in the studio today, and it always makes for a different kind of feel to the conversation. And so, I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into this one. And what I really want you to know about today's episode is going to be quite unique because my guest today, Daniel Berends, is a clinical psychologist who also has his own journey with anxiety. So what a treat for us to get to talk to someone who can see anxiety and understand it and share his experiences from both sides of what should I say, the couch, Daniel, or the chair, or the table, the room? Yes, unlike the television shows that you might have seen where somebody lies back in a reclining couch. That's not my experience of therapy. I'd use the couch. You would use it. You would use it. So thank you, Daniel, for joining me here. And
thanks,
Daniel, we met at the Relate event, didn't we? We met in October.
Yeah, back at the Discovery Church Mount Evelyn Relate event.
Yeah.
So I just decided I'd touch base and, love your work and thought it'd be really interesting to have a chat with you about as a psychologist and the podcasting space. And, it was just a very fruitful conversation.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah. And, we actually probably had about 10 minutes before things were sort of settling down to get geared up. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Relate event, because I record at the studios of Positive Media, and this is a Positive Media podcast, annually and often over more than one evening, we host mental health events. And Daniel was a guest and I was a speaker alongside some other really wonderful colleagues of mine. And so it was really nice that we were able to meet. And I'm like, come on the podcast, let's continue this conversation. So welcome.
Thanks.
Daniel, one of the things that we've spoken about, and it's interesting at this time of the year for this podcast to be released because we know that a lot of Year 12s have sort of come through the finish of their year. They've had hopefully a lovely getaway or a break or some way to kind of unwind and de-stress, and they've all now received their ATAR results and planning for their future and embarking on university or work or whatever it is. I know that when we've spoken before, you're a clinical psychologist now. You work at a clinic in Lilydale, and we'll come to that soon. But your journey wasn't that straightforward, was it?
No.
Your ATAR experience wasn't perhaps what you expected. I wonder if you could start by telling us, because I think one of the anxieties a lot of people have, especially for young people or for parents of young people who are going through that stage of life, and even those of us who are adults who feel like there's more in me, there's something else I want to do, there's something I really feel strongly about undertaking, or I have this sense of purpose, but do I have everything that I need, to go direct or straightforward into that profession? But there are many, many routes to take when it comes to finding your role in life and your purpose. Talk to us about what your experience was.
Well, I guess, when I finished high school, I did Year 12 in 2004, and I had probably no inkling of wanting to be a psychologist back then. I didn't even do psychology in BCE.
Yeah.
So I was more interested in history and even archaeology or stuff like that.
Oh, wow,
and, that was what I was wanting to study. And but I wasn't a great student back then. So I got a relatively average ATAR. It was an enter score back then.
Oh, yes. Things have changed, yeah.
I finished Year 12 in 2004 and didn't get the enter score I wanted to get into uni and that. So I ended up doing a Cert 4 in disability support at TAFE.
Yeah.
And did disability support work for a bunch of years. So I had done work experience at a service near where I'm at and ended up getting a job there and worked through a bunch of different services. I worked in residential day services. I worked at a special developmental school. And I did that for, I think it was, it would have been 2013. I started realizing I was getting a bit despondent with it and wanted to do something more, and was considering psychology because I'd done a bunch of workshops through like PDs and stuff like that with psychologists coming in, and I developed a really keen interest in autism.
Yes.
Because I was working with a lot of autistic clients and that. And it was just really interesting. And then I was having a bit of a mentoring relationship, I guess, with a guy from the church I met at Discovery, and he basically had this conversation of, well, what do you need to do to sort of get where you want to go? And I said, well, ideally 6 years of university. And he was like, to be a psychologist, because I'd looked it up. And he said, well, what if you did part-time? And I'm like, 12 years of university.
Just
and
double
it. That's probably not optimal. And then after the discussion, he turns around to me, he goes, you know what? He goes, in 6 years, you can either still be doing what you're doing where you're doing it, or you can be a psychologist. And that really hit me. And I'm like, that is really true.
Yeah.
So with a wife, 2 kids, including one 6-month-old, we moved around everywhere and got everything working so that I could go to university. So in 2014, after what I call a gap decade, I started university at La Trobe.
Oh.
So, and I've literally just graduated my PhD after 11 years being there straight. And I now work there.
You beat the 12. Yep. Well, actually, you did the undergrad and then you did the PhD, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, I did the undergrad, honours, masters, and then partway through the masters started the PhD.
Wow.
Which got extended and extended and extended due to COVID. So
congratulations, Dr. Daniel Berends. That is absolutely, it's a huge accomplishment. And you remind me of Craig Harper, who was one of the speakers at the event that we met at, and a friend of mine. And he's doing his PhD at the moment. Yeah. And he's due to finish this year, 2025. Yep. And he had a similar conversation with a mentor or a friend, and it probably was a little bit different because I recall him telling someone, this is what I want to do, and they're like, but you'll be 61 when you finish. He's like, I'll be 61 anyway. I might as well be 61 with a PhD.
Yeah, and it's interesting that just that one thing that a friend of mine, Pete, said to me. He said, that 6 years will pass anyway. I've used that with clients because it is it's a powerful thing, because people, we can sit there and hold on to that idea of, but that's going to take so long to do. It's like, well, it's going to take so long to do, and we can either stay where we're at and do what we're doing, or we can change something.
That's it.
And I think that was really, and I really knew nothing about psychology, I would say, back then. I had a very rudimentary understanding, probably a lot of the misconceptions a lot of people have. And and so I decided to jump into that and go through that learning curve, and here I am. How
did you navigate that as a person with anxiety, with an anxiety challenge, kind of thinking about the uncertainty, the change? Obviously, you're married, dad, making a really big decision that doesn't just impact you, it impacts other people around you. How did you kind of balance the need for this different kind of purpose? You obviously done really purposeful work leading up to that, and it had sparked this interest in you. Because I know that for career change or for any significant change, the uncertainty, the unknown can really be a bit of a stop sign when it comes to anxiety. A lot of people will feel, well, I don't know what to expect. And all of these bodily changes occur. We have this racing heart, this pit in our stomach that can make us kind of feel tense and sweaty, and it's uncomfortable. And so sometimes the comfortable and the known feels like a better place to hang out. Whereas we're costing ourselves, aren't we, by not kind of noticing that and finding the ways to move through and using the skills to settle it down and to step forward anyway. What did you do? How did you cope?
I mean, it's interesting because, like I said, I wouldn't say I actually recognized myself as having an anxiety disorder then. Like I knew I was anxious, whether I'd call it that or something else, but I don't know. But the interesting thing is I started studying, started learning more about anxiety, and how I dealt with diving into that, I guess, was just that sense of purpose. Like you said, you sort of have that, like you said before, exactly, like, you have that sense of I want to do something more and be something more. And I guess that's kind of where I ended up. And I think almost that idea of diving into this thing and having, like, I knew what the pressure was to have to get certain scores to progress through each stage. If people going through that at the moment now will know what I'm talking about.
So when you say about certain scores, you mean as you're undertaking your degree, the benchmarks
the
that you needed
to get into honours, and the benchmark to get into masters. And then, so it was interesting having that pressure, and I actually felt like diving in. Okay, well, I was either going to stay where I was, or I was going to change something and be someone I wanted to be on the other side. And I think we, had supportive family around at the time and all that sort of thing. So we were able to, move into my in-laws' house, which was financially supportive. We were, my wife has been, I say I have a very tolerant and merciful wife.
What's her name?
Christine.
If she doesn't mind you saying. Oh, good work, Christine.
She's been a big part of this. I say, every time I've, had anything about thanking and finishing the study, I think it's been about, she's earned this as much as I have. We started this with a 2-year-old, a 6-month-old when I started uni, and our daughter was born halfway through second year of university. So that's been a wild ride through all of that. So I think it was about having that support behind and knowing that was there was a big part. I think I never would have done it had I been on my own. But I think it is interesting because now that I think back of it, even just with you asking that question, I don't think I would have recognized I had anxiety back then.
Yeah.
At least not in the same way, because my perspective of anxiety was so much more severe from the work I had and all that sort of thing. And I think that's something I gained a lot more perspective on as I studied and went through all the undergrad and then particularly masters, learning a lot of things. And that was a bit of a ride that I had to work through a lot of stuff going through my masters and that sort of thing. And it made me a better therapist, I think.
Oh, totally. There's so much stress and pressure at university, and especially when the milestones come around, the confirmation of the PhD. And I did honours and then a PhD. I didn't do a master's, so I'm not familiar at all with how that kind of unfolds. But it's so unknown. There's so many ups and downs. I cried more times than I can count. When I was doing my PhD, I had a really good friend, Hayley, that we were both kind of going through the same department at the same time, doing very, very different research. And sometimes I'd remember this was pre-coffee time. We'd sit on the step. I didn't start drinking coffee until I became a parent, a sleep-deprived parent.
Funny that.
But so 36 I was. I think of all the money I must have saved not buying all those takeaways. But I just remember sitting on the steps with her and just bawling my eyes out. Something didn't work. A study didn't go how it was, expected, and just the ups and downs. And this is kind of, pre-children. I could devote everything to it, whereas you were sort of doing the juggle. But one of the things that I feel really passionate about when it comes to anxiety is that I do believe that every single person that you meet, no matter what life they're walking through, has something that they hope for in their heart that might move them forward professionally or personally, or even if it's just a little hobby that they feel like, oh, I've always wanted to do this, and I've always wanted to learn a language, or I've just started Simply Piano. This is my thing at the moment. Yeah. We've got a keyboard at home and I've got the Simply Piano app, and every day I just do 5 or 10 minutes, and it's terrible what I'm doing, but I'm learning skills. It's terrible in that I'm making so many mistakes and things, but it's a little something I want to do, and I'm just starting. I'm just getting that ball rolling. And so I appreciate this conversation because you've done something like extraordinary, and you've done the juggle and you've managed it, and you've used your supports around you. And I just hope that if you're listening and you're thinking there's something on your heart that you would like, no matter what age you are or what stage of life that you're in, that hearing more about what Daniel's learned about anxiety from, his own personal experiences and those as a professional as well, that you can learn through this episode and others, that we just need to make a note of what it is that we want to do, write it down and make a start and have conversations with people who are supportive, like you did. Perhaps if you hadn't have had that conversation with Pete, I think you said, then, we might not be here having this conversation today.
Oh, no, we wouldn't. And I tell him, like, every time someone says, like, oh, you did it, you're a psychologist, and I'm like, I told Pete, it's like, it's your fault. Like, I literally wouldn't be here if it wasn't for
you are responsible for this.
Like, I cannot imagine how I would have made this path if that collection of conversations hadn't happened. So I think, it was a few different people around that all made it a part of it. And even going through mentors I've had through the uni and all that sort of thing, and supervisors that are now colleagues and that sort of thing. It's been great having that understanding that it's like, we don't exist in a vacuum. There's very little things we are truly doing on our own. It's a matter of actually just reaching out there and seeing. So
yeah, and also finding the people, if it's psychology that you want to do, finding the people, or no matter what it is that you have that you would like to achieve or accomplish or just embark on a journey towards, finding the people that are doing that or who are on that journey and having those conversations, reaching out and asking.
Yeah,
if you just send an email or an email, I think is probably the best thing, or a DM on socials perhaps, then if you never ask, the answer's always no. You never know. Somebody might reply and be willing to support you. So, but all of that comes, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear of rejection. There's a lot of fear of failure. And that can be something that can stand in the way of people taking a first step. So, what are some of the misconceptions that you perhaps had beliefs around before you started doing the training and learning about anxiety and learning more about your own anxiety as well?
I suppose for me it was a much more, black and white thing. It was you either had a disorder or you didn't. And I think learning that continuum of mental health was really important. And I think that just almost what was interesting to me over particularly the masters and that, and learning, I use the acceptance commitment therapy model mostly and a bit of CBT here and there. And I think using that ACT model is interesting to see how ubiquitous anxiety is.
Ubiquitous meaning common.
As in how it's across everything, I guess. Yeah, just how common anxiety is in that it's not just a disorder. Yeah. It's a mechanism, it's a natural thing. It's, we consider something a disorder when it's impacting us to the point that we can't live life the way we want, or it's impacting our ability to function. And, there's all those DSM criteria. But anxiety itself is this inherent mechanism in how our brain's been designed to work. I remember a supervisor and our colleague in that, Eric, has always said this thing of our brains were designed to keep us safe, not happy. And I use that all the time because it's just so true in so many ways. Our brain has that inclination to want to protect us from things. And I think just as an example, I think anyone that hasn't seen Inside Out 2 yet, not sponsored by Pixar, but Inside Out 2
We'd like to be, though, Pixar, if you're listening, though.
Inside Out 2 is a work of art. Really, when you think it, it's about a 13-year-old girl going through this stuff, but you could apply it to anyone.
Yeah.
And it's just such a good metaphor for how our brain is trying to help us. There's this mechanism that has kept us alive for so many years. It's just that sometimes it goes off when it's not needed.
Yeah.
And I think another metaphor I learned that really sort of put this in perspective for me was this idea that anxiety is like the smoke alarm in your house. It'll go off if your house is burning down or if you're burning the toast. It'll go off just the same. And I think learning that and learning about, okay, so this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm experiencing when I start realizing the sky's going to fall and everything's going to go wrong. And being able to apply that knowledge of this is your brain trying to protect you from things it anticipates.
Yes.
It's just not it's very narrow-minded and short-sighted. It's just not very good at it.
Yes.
And, our world's gotten more complicated than this mechanism was designed for in a way. And so
there's a lot more danger.
Yeah.
As I use quotation marks, air quotes, but there's so many threats that our brain detects in this sort of modern way of living.
Yeah, we have this mechanism that was designed to protect us from snakes or cliffs or tigers in the bushes, and now we're applying it to social situations.
Yes.
And that's the universalness of anxiety, I think, was one of the main things that really opened my eyes. And, and all the other mental health conditions and stuff we can talk about, things like depression, all that sort of stuff, these things are all on continuums. There's very few things that are just this black and white line of you either have it or you don't. It's a mechanism that is there, or it's a process that is there, and it's either there to a point of impacting your life or it's not. And that changes, and the idea of context was also really big, and I love that. And,
tell us more about what you mean by context.
The idea that the context a person is in, like I said, no one exists in a vacuum. There is a context around us. There is the events in our life. There is our history. There is our social environment, our support. And like we said earlier, some people will have more support, some people will have none. And that person's context will change how they experience different events and how they react with their anxiety, or how much anxiety they experience from that. We even know, there's research to show, the prediction of whether or not someone will get PTSD from an event is how much perceived support they have. So their context is actually what's protected.
Yes.
And I think taking this idea of context in an ACT way, it's just changed so much of how I look at the world and how we interact with things and each other, and it just makes everything so relational.
Yeah.
And I just love that.
Yeah. The one example that I've said before on the podcast, and I'll say it again, it's just a really good example, is if you hold certain values around health and fitness and exercise and role modeling, if you're a parent, for example, then eating cake every day is not going to really align. Those choices are not going to align with those values. But in the context of sort of everyday cake eating, it's not really an alignment. But if there's a birthday, there's a celebration, somebody's having a party, go and eat the cake. I mean, it's not about the cake really, but it's just about kind of what's going to align with your values.
Yeah.
And the context is really important with that, because it's a values aligned definitely when you're celebrating somebody's PhD, for example, or wedding or engagement, or there was a lot of that. Excellent. I don't think we celebrate the good things in life nearly enough. I don't think we celebrate our achievements enough. Whereas the daily cake eating is out of alignment. And so I think that context really matters. It really matters. And it's something that I'm really glad that we get to talk about. When it comes to anxiety and having clients who come in, how much do you share about kind of your relatability to their situation? I know it's different for different practitioners and clinicians.
Yeah.
I know with ACT that there is more of a lean towards some disclosure. So, talk to us about what that experience is like and how some disclosure might help to support a client who's coming and saying, these are my experiences, and for you to be able to sort of say, hey, I really relate to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's quite often I'll talk to clients about, that I have my own anxiety, because it's like being able to say, I have my own anxiety, this strategy worked for me, or I've seen this strategy work for someone else, and then I guess it is also that point, it just gives that reassurance that it is that universal thing. It's, people come in, as you sit in the room and people think you're the expert and you must know all these things and have perfect mental health because you can just fix all of them. And I'm like, I'm not the expert. I'm just the ideas guy. That's the line I use. And it's like, and for some people, that idea of, here I am, this person who studied this for 11 plus years now, and I have anxiety and I experience it, normalizes it for the other person. I think that's the model behind ACT in doing that. Right. And even talking about the fact that, I've on and off taken, antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds and that sort of thing. For clients that are really anxious about that, it's going, well, as a psychologist, we don't prescribe, we don't, we have to refer for, absolute information for that. But ultimately we can explain, this is how they're meant to work. And I've taken them. Would I be recommending this to you? It's like, a do you trust me kind of thing.
Yes.
But that's, I think the self-disclosure thing I have found really useful because it does that normalization. And I remember it was a conversation with Pete after I'd started. And he goes, so now that you're learning all these things, because I'd just learned all the neurochemistry and everything around anxiety and all that sort of stuff. And he goes, so now that you understand all this, does it help with your own anxiety? I'm like, no.
It's like having a broken arm and then learning, well, this is the name of the bone and these are the arteries and these are the nerves. But it's like, it doesn't actually,
It's that really, it is just that idea of I can know everything there is about this. I know how to treat it. It doesn't stop me experiencing it because, we have factors out of our control that do that. And I think for a lot of clients, realizing just that idea that it is so universal and that you could have this, fantastic life. You look at people like, Buddy Franklin and other people we know that are really up there in their field. They're all the pinnacle of success as far as we can tell. And they're still experiencing anxiety and depression. And I think that's the power of some of, these people coming out and talking about their experiences. And I think you see that when you as a clinician discuss this with clients. And obviously there's lines of where it's helpful and not helpful. And as part of my role, and, I've been teaching postgrad, future psychologists at university and stuff.
How cool is that? Let's just stop there for a second. You have come from your post-high school professional role in social work, essentially.
Yep.
Then you've undertaken so much in the way of study.
So much study.
So much study. Undergraduate, obviously aced it. Honours, obviously aced it. Masters, converted into a PhD, now fully qualified, and now teaching.
Yeah.
That's very cool. That's really cool.
I love that. I really love the teaching.
Yeah.
I've been doing the tutoring at uni since honours, like just as a casual job, because because my uni's an hour away from where I live, so rather than having another job, it was just more convenient to study, go teach a class for 2 hours, come back to study.
Yes.
Do it in between classes, legit.
Perfect.
But yeah, I really love the teaching, because like part of what I love doing is that talking to people about the art and the process and the science of therapy and doing that. And like you said, that idea of going to find someone to support, to ask questions, and someone who's going through it. Like, I love that. Like, I love going into undergraduate classes, and particularly up to that third year part where people are really stressing about getting into honours.
Yes.
And they come with so many cool questions about what's it like? What do you actually do? How do you go through this part? What do you do with this? And that was just a really cool part of the process. And I just really like where I'm at now, that teaching part-time and doing part-time clinical as well. And it's that really good balance of, you know, helping people and doing that clinical work and really connecting with people and doing that, but also teaching. And I love the idea of being useful, I suppose, is one of my values. And I mean, even at the, you know, my volunteer work I do through like Discovery Church and a bunch of other organizations, I do workshops and that sort of thing. And so that's just a space I've really found that I enjoy being. And I think if I think back to 12 years ago, I don't think I could have imagined I am where I am now. Like, PhD wasn't a thing. Like, the idea of someone calling me Dr. Dan, it was not in my mind back then.
No.
It was completely different. And so I think that idea of that time, like we said, will pass. It's you can't know which direction that's going to go. And I talk to students about this at open days and year 12 students all the time. It's like, you might want to do this now, like 10 years down the track, you might change your mind, and that's fine. We don't know what we need to do with our lives at 16.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's not told enough to high school students.
I know. And the direct entry with the right ATAR into the right course, it's only one path. There are many, many ways that we can get into the courses. I, for a long time, wanted to be a doctor, and I was teaching at the time. I thought this is what I wanted, and I pretty much studied. This was after coming back after my depression. So I had some time out when I was diagnosed with major clinical depression, and then I was just sort of easing back in and back at work teaching, but just sort of really clear that I just wanted to do more to really support others. I really wanted to help people understand about their mental health. I ended up working for Beyond Blue for a period of time, but I studied every night after work. I was pretty much full-time study and full-time teaching. Thankfully, the hours, I could, I didn't have to be sort of back at the school till sort of 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I could come home and walk the dogs and then get stuck into it. But I did find my way into, I ended up earning myself through all of the exams and everything that I had to sit, getting an interview at a university for a place in medical school. It just happened to be interstate.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I remember somebody said, we can have pretty much anything we want. We just have to be prepared to make sacrifices to get there.
Yep.
And that really stuck with me. I really felt like this is something I really want. I'd worked very, very hard for it. But the sacrifice of moving interstate with fragile mental health, my whole support system in Melbourne, the idea of going interstate to study University of Sydney was just, that wasn't a sacrifice I was willing to make.
Yeah.
So I let that dream go. I could have kept trying, but I ended up going back and doing other studies and finding myself here where I never predicted standing in a studio with a pair of headphones on having a cool conversation. But it's one of these things, isn't it, that when it comes to our journey, we just don't know. We're capable of more than we think. Yeah. But we just have to put a step forward and put one foot in front of the other. Yeah. And here you are, Dr. Dan. And and it's pretty, it's so interesting because you obviously work with clients who struggle with a whole range of mental health challenges, and you're teaching, and of course you have your own experience with, like most of us do. What are some of the things that you found over the years have really made a difference for you and for your clients? Because I know listeners to this podcast, some are supporting other people with anxiety, some are teachers, some are people who really struggle, some are people where it's a sort of a small part of their life and they're at one end of the continuum versus the other. But it'd be really interesting from your perspective with your own personal and professional experience. What have you found that's been really helpful?
I suppose the first thing, like just, putting on the workshop hat, like being willing to find the help in the first place.
Yeah.
That you don't have to have all the answers. Like we have this weird idea with mental health that we all have a mind and therefore we all know how it works.
Yeah.
And I think that's a premise of ACT, isn't it? It's like we all have thoughts and we think it's us and we think it's true.
Yes.
And the problem with that is that if we all think we have a mind and we all think, oh yeah, I know how this works, then we take on all our anxieties, all our emotional things we take on as our own problem and our responsibility and our fault.
Mm.
One of the things that going to a psychologist is really helpful for, and I've been to psychologists, like I always say, like every psychologist should have a psychologist. Yeah. Sometimes we just call it supervision.
Yeah.
And the idea is being able to recognize that these thoughts aren't me.
Mm.
And that being willing to go and get the help from someone else, because we don't have to have the answer. I was talking to a bunch of high school students a while ago on Are You OK Day? And we were talking about, what do you do when your friends are struggling? And what we said was, don't feel you have to have all the answers because you don't. Right? Like those of us that have studied 10 years, like we have some of the answers and we know the process of how to help people find the answers for themselves. But that's the thing. It is a process and an exploration and there's so much more to it than just changing your mind. There's no magical sentence that just will switch this off and off it goes. And I think probably the most useful thing I see, and this is why I love the ACT model, is acceptance and validation.
Yes.
Is that if we can't stop paying attention to just what's wrong and actually accept that it's there and go, okay, that's there. It's not saying it's okay. It's not saying it's a good thing. It's not saying we have to like it. But trying to fight against it is the problem.
Yeah.
Trying to fight against it is what occupies us and keeps us away from what we want to do. Like the example being, say, social anxiety. And I think the first time I recognized my anxiety was really around that social aspect. It was, what do people think of me? Or I said that. And even now, like I'll go to social engagement or I'll do a workshop or something and I'll get in the car with my wife afterwards. And the first thing I ask her is, was I ranting? Was I babbling? And that, I keep rethinking everything I've said. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I should have said more about that. I'll do it after this.
Yeah.
Guarantee you in the car home, I'll be like,
you can go and listen to it and then you can know exactly how you sounded.
Yeah, exactly. I know I'm going to be driving back down the highway going like, oh, I should have talked more about that, or I shouldn't have said that like that, or I should have. And that's the social anxiety.
Yeah.
But I recognize that now. And that's the thing. I can accept that's there and accept that's not me. That's my brain trying to go, oh, if you did this, it'd be better. And here's that thing that they're going to think about now. And that idea of going, well, if I can stop looking at the problem, I can occupy myself with what the alternative solutions are.
Yes.
And I think, going back, that was a bit of a rant, but
that's all right.
The social anxiety example I keep using is that if we say, well, I'm going to go to that party, but I'm going to feel really anxious, that safe, not happy part of our brain is wired to go, well, don't go to the party then.
Yeah.
And then that feeling goes away and that conditions us that was the right thing to do.
Yes.
And by accepting, I'm going to go to that party and I'm going to feel anxious.
Yes.
We can accept that the anxiety is going to be there and have fun at the party. And usually at the end of it, you're going to go, oh, that was really good.
Yeah.
Like it's the notion of exposure therapy, isn't it? It's like, but did you die? Essentially like the meme, right? and that's what we do with people. And I think one of the things I say to a lot of clients is that swapping but for and. And I think that must be a Russ Harris or a Steve Hayes, an ACT thing.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting that anything we say before the word but doesn't matter.
Yeah, I hear that, especially in an apology.
Yes. And we hear that. It's like anything you say before the word but doesn't matter. But if we swap the but for and, it's, I'm going to go to that party, but I'm going to feel really anxious. So I don't go.
Yes.
I want to go study at university, but I'm the one earning the money in my family and I'm the only one doing this. So I don't do it. But what if it's, I want to go to university and I'm the one earning money.
Yeah.
So how do I make this work? Notice how the and opens opportunities. It opens a different way of thinking. It doesn't just cut it off.
Yes.
And so I think that idea of acceptance and validation and going, well, yes, you're having these thoughts. You don't have to get rid of them because for the most part you can't. Yeah. And some people get annoyed when you tell them that. They're like, how do I just get rid of it? How do I stop?
That's what I'm coming here for. I'm sorry, I'm not paying you now. I'm leaving.
Yeah, exactly. And like no one's done that, but it's that idea of, these thoughts are there as a natural reaction, not a reality. And being able to accept that and go like, oh, look, there's my thing. Like, one of my favorite strategies I use is that diffusion of like naming your anxiety.
Yes.
Right? I say my wife named my anxiety Colin, right?
Okay.
And Colin's a jerk. And to the point that like you can do that. It's taking it away from me thinking I failed, me thinking I made this massive stuff up.
Yeah.
To Colin's telling me that. And it becomes that thing of, I can choose to listen to him or not.
Yes.
Rather than it being me telling myself and therefore it being true.
Yes.
And I think that works in a lot of, Steve Hayes, the guy who wrote ACT, talks about, if you have negative statements, he's like, sing your negative statements back to you in the tune of Happy Birthday.
Yes.
And it just completely changes the feel of it and the weight it has. And even saying things like, I'm having the thought that, or I'm feeling like, it just takes the weight out of it. Like even just saying it to yourself, going like, I failed at that. I'm having the thought that I failed. Yes, that's it. I mean, you just practice that as you're listening, just something to yourself, and you notice how it feels different. It feels phenomenally different. That's a very strong adjective I'm using, but I've used that. Diffusion, those diffusion strategies were game changers for me. Absolute game changers. And we say diffusion, meaning when you are really locked into your thoughts and really hooked, that you're fused with them in the way that you would fuse two parts together, like using a welder or something. And so diffusion is like defuse, is separate, and getting that distance from what you're thinking. And that is something that I've trained myself to do, and it's become quite a natural thing to do. And now I don't need to use it so much because I've just learned not to pay so much attention. Yeah. And I'll use I'm having the thought that, or that old story kind of coming up. And I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Tamar Black. She wrote ACT for treating children. No, I don't think I have. If you have younger clients, it's an excellent book. And she used another diffusion strategy called a word scramble. So if you've got a little child who is terrified of storms, for example, then even just sort of talking about a storm sort of elicits this kind of, anxious response. That one way of helping diffuse, is to write the word storm on in big letters on a piece of paper, tear it up so you've got each letter and then jumble them up. So you've got your storm almost becomes just something that's unintelligible. Smart. And something that maybe you might have a giggle about. And that's another strategy that's useful for kids or big kids, it doesn't really matter. It's finding what works for you, isn't it? Yeah. And I think another thing like similar with kids, and I think going back to that idea of acceptance and that. And I think one thing I found really works for clients, because I work, because of the research I've done, like all my theses and all that sort of stuff are all on autism, going through La Trobe University. And then so I kind of have a reputation. I get a lot of clients relating to autism, including the parents of kids. And I think that acceptance side. So for parents going through that process, like it is this idea of, diagnosis and assessments, and acceptance is such a powerful thing there. Yes. Because it's accepting like this is the brain your child has, because when we keep holding on to that, but how do I change it? How do I fix it? Yes. We don't. We learn to accept it and adapt and see. And this is what the neurodiversity movement is about, which is great. Yeah. And I think there's just so much to acceptance and validation that can go like, yes, it's hard, right? But at the same time, we can go, here's the things we can do to make it easier. But you need to be able to accept it in order to see those other options. Yeah. There's a great cartoon I was shown to me when I was doing my master's, and it's this broken elevator, and it's got this big thing across it saying out of order. Yeah. And in front of it, there's one guy who's like in the fetal position, freaking out because the elevator's broken. There's another guy who's sitting there just looking at his watch, waiting for the elevator to get fixed. Another dude is, in the side where the panel is, trying to fix it himself and all that. And then another guy's given up and gone home. Yeah. And between all of those guys, none of them saw the stairs. Yeah. And this is what acceptance is that if we keep focusing on the fact that the elevator's broken, we don't see where the stairs are. Yes. So I use this clinically all the time. It's when we're stuck on what the problem is, going, okay, so the elevator's broken, but where are the stairs? And yes, like, no, finding the stairs isn't going to fix the elevator, but it's still going to get you up there eventually. Yes. It's going to be different. It's going to be harder maybe. It's going to take longer. Yes. It's not going to look how it was, but you're still going to get there, hopefully. And that's, I think, one of the best things. And I think as an illustration, I've got to get it and put it up on the wall in the clinic.
Yes, please send it to me when you find it.
Yeah, I'll have to find it. It's such a good one. Yeah.
Yes, it is. And the struggle with anxiety, the anxiety, we all get anxious. I mean, it's completely normal. Everybody gets anxious often.
It is that survival mechanism.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's not the problem. Like you were saying, it's about the struggle with it, the fight with it, the discomfort that comes with it can be so intolerable. How do you help clients who just struggle so much with the discomfort or the, thoughts? I mean, and I've been there too, I was a worry wart as a kid. Nobody knew I had anxiety till I ended up with depression,
Yes,
and
same.
thankfully my body was able to sort of put me in a position whereby I could give my nervous system a break, which is obviously what it needed, and then get the help, because I would never have gone to the doctor because I didn't know I was operating in a way for 25 years that was in need of some support. It was only when I became depressed that I'm like, my life is amazing on the outside. I just want to cry all the time. Something's wrong. I'll go to the GP. And of course that led me to getting lots of help.
Yeah.
But the discomfort, like the truth in the thoughts that we think can feel so sickening and so frightening. And the diffusion helps a lot, doesn't it? If you've got a client who was like I was and struggles really. For example, I'll give you a scenario. You may have come across it, you may not have. This was me as a mum for the first time. My child had a rash, the good old post-viral rash.
Yeah.
Nobody told me about that. I would think it would be terminal. Like in my mind, when something was wrong with my infant, my mind would go to the absolute catastrophic ending.
Yeah.
And so for someone listening who might be in that place with their anxiety, where's a good, obviously getting help.
Yeah.
Getting help. But what's one thing? I mean, we don't have all the answers here today, of course, but what's one thing that you might say to someone like, say to me, 15 years ago when I had this tiny little boy at home and I was at the hospital, like was literally at the GP every third day, kind of saying, something's really, really wrong.
Yeah.
Where would you start?
I think, first of all, back on the acceptance train, like as an intro to that, I think, like you're saying, absolutely, the mum guilt is a massive thing. And I think to any mums out there who are struggling and don't know what to do, it's like, you're entitled to help. Parenting is hard. I mean, I've been through that with 3 kids, and it's like, it's worth getting the help for that. Yeah. You're not failing because you need help for this. Like, you're not meant to do this on your own. We were never meant to do this on our own. But as far as the catastrophizing in that, I think that diffusion of, I'm having the thought that, my baby's really sick. I think, there's that idea of giving yourself space from that, because like you said, it's when we own it, when we're saying like, this is true. And our brain's wired to weigh negative things heavier than positive things, right? Like arbitrarily, any negative thing happens, it takes 4 times the positive things to actually outweigh that. So, we're going to be imagining this is the worst possible thing because protecting that baby, but, doing the thing for survival, that's what we're wired for. So what I think is, with having those thoughts and it not letting go, and like, I find the mindfulness stuff really good for that, and stuff like, imagining your thoughts are coming down this stream and going like, okay, you don't have to pick it up out of the stream. Yeah. All right. I also like the sushi train. Have you heard the sushi train one?
I have. Yeah, go on. Talk to us about the sushi train.
Is like, you can imagine a suit. Like, do you like sushi?
I love sushi.
Yeah. What's a sushi you love?
Oh, I'm real basic when it comes to sushi. I just like the salmon on the rice, or a little hand roll or something.
Yeah, the little nigiris.
I don't know what they're called, but with a little bit of miso or something.
Yeah. So what's one you could take or leave?
Oh, anything with seaweed.
Yep.
Other than the hand roll's good, but when it's got like the kind of the seaweed salad and things like that, not a fan.
And what's one you just don't want? Like,
oh gosh, anything that's unrecognizable.
Yep. The little actually moving squid tentacles sort of thing.
Yes.
And here's the thing, like, you understand the concept of sushi train, the restaurant, right? You sit there and this train goes past with all the different dishes, and our brain does this. And this is a Russ Harris one I've seen. The author of The Happiness Trap and The Reality Slap, 2 great books, if people are interested. Very easy reads, very useful, lots of strategies. Pretty much everything we've talked about today is in one of those books, I would say.
Yeah.
And so you imagine your brain is like the sushi chef, and it gives you thoughts that come along on that train. And we have this natural inclination that we have to take everything and eat it.
Yeah.
Regardless of what it is. And the reality is in life is that sometimes we get that sushi we really love and we can take it off and scoff it, but there's only so much of that.
Yeah.
Right. And then sometimes it's the ordinary and, well, okay, I'll take that because I'm hungry. And then sometimes it's the stuff we just don't want.
Yeah.
And the reality is you don't have to take that plate off the train. You can just let it go.
Yeah.
Yes, it'll probably come back around again. And you can let it go.
Yes.
Or sometimes we pick it up and we start eating and then we realize it's like moving squid tentacles and we're like, oh, I don't want this.
Yeah.
You can put the plate back on the train.
Yeah.
And off it goes.
Yes.
And this is a metaphor we use doing mindfulness stuff. And
yes.
And sometimes it's about realizing that thought, like, my kid's got this rash, it must be terminal. Like, what do I do? What do I do? It's going, okay, take a breath, ground yourself, use some grounding techniques, whether that's breathing, feeling your chair, pushing your feet into the floor, like dropping an anchor is a Russ Harris thing. Like I use that all the time. And it's doing that to essentially let that thought continue on down the stream, let it move on. Because the reality is if we don't engage with the thought, if we don't pick it up and rifle through it like it's this, drawer of truths, it'll eventually fade on its own. Yeah. Like there's a river, like you watch leaves come down the stream, that's the metaphor, right?
Yes.
Like the thought appears, comes down the river, might swirl around in front of you, might try and get your attention.
Yes.
But eventually it will fade and be replaced by another one. Big thoughts, little thoughts, doesn't really matter. Sometimes we choose to pick them up. Sometimes we can choose to put them back. And I think, as far as if it's the thoughts, that's kind of my go-to thing.
Yes.
And if it's the feeling, like, because I think the other thing people aren't prepared for with anxiety, and the thing that I guess, stops them from trying to work with it so much is that physiological side, like you were saying, the heart racing and the fact that you just cannot let go of this thought. And it feels like if I just, my kid's got this rash or something, like, I had it like, one of my kids would just bump their head all the time, had this, ran full pelt into the corner of a bench, had this massive welt. And it's that idea of like, oh my God, like they got bleeding on the brain or they got swelling or something like that. And, we have nurse friends, we ask them, they're like, well, if it's swelling on the outside, it's usually not swelling on the inside. So you should be fine. Kids do this. But that thought of like, we need to take them to hospital and all the imaginary futures of what you're going to wake up to or what's going to happen if you don't deal with this. It creates that wrenching feeling in your stomach or your gut. And it's different for everyone. And I usually ask people like, where are you feeling that in your body? Yeah. And actually notice that. Because it's when we try and go, well, I'm going to let that thought go, that feeling gets worse. Because your brain's going, no, you need to pay attention.
No, there's a danger. Pay attention.
The fire alarm's going off. And you really need to say, like, okay, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to ground myself, be present. Another thing I say all the time is depression's worrying about the past, anxiety's worrying about the future. And between both those things, we're missing what's happening right now.
That's it. Right here, right now, you're safe. You're okay. There's no danger, but it's very hard with a racing mind, isn't it? And I think one of the things that's probably just before we finish up to really remind our listeners is that if you are practicing meditation, your mind will wander to the past or the future. Yeah. And then you'll notice that it's wandered. It's like when you're reading a book. You're reading and then you realise, I actually don't know a word I've read. I've been thinking totally about a meeting tomorrow.
So I'm going to go back and see how far I was going with that.
Totally. I did that with the podcast yesterday. I was trying to listen to a space and my mind just kept wandering. I rewound it and then just decided I think I just better press pause and deal with what I'm thinking about. But that's very normal. That's very normal for that to happen. And part of the skill and the skill is recognizing when your mind has wandered, noticing it and coming back to whatever it is that you want to meditate on, whether it's the breath or whether it's just what you're listening to or it's a recording that you're following or something. And so it gets easier with practice over time. The mindfulness practice, the meditation helps you to more easily let go of these thoughts that otherwise would have been very sticky.
And I think on that, like what you just said, that is really an important part, I think, as well to this whole process is that it's going to happen. Yeah. You're going to slip up. We're not going to, we don't expect 100% success rate. Yeah. Right. I mean, I see that in myself. And I mean, as obviously as a psychologist, like, the idea of imposter syndrome. Oh, yes. That's one thing we teach the master's students all the time. Like that doesn't go away. Right. Yeah. It's this idea of me having a really anxious moment and going like, crap, well, I'm the psychologist. Like, I'm how am I feeling like this? I shouldn't be feeling like this. having just the grace for yourself to know, okay, things are going to slip up. It's going to get hard. Some days are bigger than others. Like, I use dropping an anchor. I say, some storms are bigger than others.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes more work to get through it, and that's okay. Like,
yeah,
we don't expect 100% success. People, can come in, and I even think of it of myself, that idea of like, oh, well, it's all thrown away now and I'm back at square one. So, well, you can't go back to square one.
No.
Right? Because you didn't know all this stuff at square one.
That's
and so
right.
now you're just going, okay, I've fallen in a hole and I'm picking myself out of that hole and continuing forward.
Yeah.
And so I think that the acceptance, the diffusion, the having the self-compassion and the grace for yourself to go like, I'm not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Is all a big package that comes together. And I think all that stuff that I've learnt over the years I've been studying, that I've been able to go home and use for myself and support my kids. Like I've got 3 very differently neurodivergent children.
Yes.
Right? We've got the family variety box of neurodiversity. And we use this stuff. And, they're old enough now that they're sitting there going like, oh, you're psychologying me.
I'm on to
and all
you,
that
Dad.
sort of thing. And like, oh, other people pay me for this. Like, you could trust that I know what I'm talking about. And we go through some of these strategies. And I just really appreciate that part of it. The journey going through, like I've been able to use this for myself as much as to help other people. And then you can use the idea that it's helped you to help other people.
That's right.
And it all just becomes this big, like I said, this big relational, everything's connected together and it just all meshes so well.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's just, it makes me feel like that useful purpose, like all the work, all the, the blood, sweat, tears that literally went into this.
Yes.
All 3 of those,
yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, it's all worth it to be able to have this, I suppose, feeling of this all coming together that I can't entirely put into words, but it's great.
No, you've done really well, and it's actually a really perfect place for us to finish, because I feel like we've kind of come full circle. And Daniel, how can people connect with you and your wonderful work?
I suppose, professionally and clinically, I work at the By Design Holistic Health Clinic. So we've got osteos and physios, multidisciplinary clinic down in Lilydale.
Awesome.
And we've also got a space in Bayswater now as well. So that's one thing. Otherwise, I do a lot of volunteer work and workshops and stuff in various ways through Discovery Church in Mount Evelyn. So I'm more than happy for people to come say hi and,
connect
I love
with you
meeting. I love meeting people and talk. That's how we're here. I love meeting people, talking to people, and ranting about this stuff. It's what I do.
And what you shared today, I've loved our conversation. I think it's really not only like your personal and professional journey, but also so many of the strategies that you've shared. They're really, really powerful. And I think for people, anyone listening, one thing I love about this podcast is that people realize they're not alone. It's so common. It's the most common mental illness or mental health condition that most people in most countries struggle with. It's a huge challenge, and it's an emotion. We all feel it every day. So whether or not it's just the ordinary variety or you go to the, catastrophic thinking and get all the physiological symptoms and it's getting in the way of daily functioning, I think this is an episode that will really help. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. And thank you for listening. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm so excited for what we've got in store for you for 2025. So very much look forward to having your company again next week. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr. Jodie Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.